Friends, my name is Cash, and today I'm going to share a story about my friend Gaurav Tiwari. No, not the paranormal investigator whose mysterious death shocked many, but another Gaurav Tiwari, my friend, whose death also remains an unsolved mystery for us. I am not originally from Delhi, but at the time, I was studying there. That's all I'll say because I don't want to name any college, hostel, or place that could bring a bad reputation to any institution. I was living in a hostel while pursuing my studies, but the part of the hostel where I stayed was believed to be haunted. It was said that a bizarre incident had taken place there a few years ago. A boy had died in his room under mysterious circumstances. The official explanation given by the hostel authorities was that he had suffered a heart attack. However, the version we heard was far more terrifying. Rumors had it that when the boy was found dead, there was something unusual in his bed. Not just any object, but an Ouija board. His body had no visible injuries, but his fingers and toes were broken and twisted unnaturally, as if they had been forcefully bent. His jaw was misaligned, resembling that of someone who had suffered a stroke. Those who had witnessed the scene that day left the hostel immediately, never to return. What remained behind were only the chilling stories and eerie whispers surrounding his death. I was new there, and so were my friends. Most of the guys didn't take those horror stories too seriously, but I did. The part of the hostel we stayed in had a strange, unsettling vibe. It was always dark, no matter what. If someone installed a new bulb or light, it would either blow out or stop working the very next day. But there was another thing about that area. It was a hotspot for guys who smoked, drank, and did other stuff. Nobody ever saw them doing it, though. It was like it all happened in secret. During the day, no one even looked in that direction. But at night, that dark corner of the hostel was so eerily silent that the quiet itself felt terrifying. I didn't even have the courage to open my door and peek outside. Days went by, and we were having a good time making memories. Everything was going fine until one night when we decided to have a small party in our room. It was just the three of us, Gaurav, Pankaj, and me. We were sitting on the floor near the bed. Right before grabbing the bottle, Gaurav took off a small amulet from around his neck and placed it beside him. Pankaj noticed and joked, "What's this?" "Some kind of black magic." When he tried to touch it, Gaurav quickly pulled his hand away and said, "This is my protection talisman. It's been in my family for generations. I only take it off when I eat meat or drink alcohol." That led us into a conversation about ghosts and supernatural stuff. And of course, it was only a matter of time before we started talking about that dark, abandoned section of the hostel. The two of them knew I was a bit of a coward when it came to such things, so Pankaj challenged me. "If you've got guts, go to the last room of the hostel, knock on the door, and come back." I immediately refused. "Are you crazy? Only an idiot would walk into death's mouth like that." Gaurav was our new roommate. He had only been with us for a few days, but in that short time, he had already become one of us. Laughing, he said, "All right, I'll go. I'll knock on the door, and I'll even stay there for a while. But what will you guys give me in return?" Jokingly, I said, "I'll write all your class notes for the entire year." Gaurav smirked. "You sure? If you back out later, I'll drag you there in your sleep one night." I quickly backtracked. "Hey, I'm just joking. I don't want anyone going there." But he was stubborn. "Nope," he said it. "So now you gotta stick to it, coward." Pankaj joined in, pushing him further. "Okay, fine. If you just go and come back, I'll owe you 1 month of anything you ask for." Gaurav exhaled a cloud of smoke and laughed. "That's all? Too small a risk for such a weak reward." Pankaj grabbed a cigarette and raised the stakes. "All right then, if you do it, I'll cover all your food and drinks for an entire year." At that, Gaurav grinned and said, "Now we're talking. Tell me when I should go." Pankaj widened his intoxicated eyes, looked at his phone, and said, "Look, today is Thursday. 2 days from now, at exactly 3 a.m., you'll go there, stay for half an hour, and then come back. If you agree, say yes." I didn't want to get involved in their stupid game, but they had already dragged me into it. I knew very well that on Saturday nights, the hostel was practically empty. Most of the guys either went home or hung out elsewhere, leaving only a handful of students behind. That made this challenge even scarier. Gorov clapped his hands and said, "Saturday it is then. I'm not the kind to get scared. Just remember your bet." Both of them laughed, teasing me before eventually passing out. We had talked so much about ghosts that night that I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, feeling the eerie silence outside, while those two slept peacefully without a care in the world. The next day at college, I ran into Gorov in the afternoon. I asked him seriously, "Are you really going there tomorrow night?" He smirked and replied, "What do you think? That I was joking. I don't get scared of things like this." He pulled out the amulet from his neck and showed it to me. Back in my village, we roam around at night without fear. I've never been afraid of anything. Still, I tried to convince him. "Look, I really don't think you should go. You know how creepy that place is. Even during the day, guys avoid that area." That Saturday, I left college early and went straight to the hostel. As soon as I reached my room, I crashed onto my bed. I hadn't slept properly for the past 2 nights. I woke up around 7 p.m., checked the time, and got ready for dinner. I had no idea where Pankaj and Gorov had been all day, but honestly, their absence was a relief. After dinner, I didn't feel like going back to my room, so I wandered around the hostel. Every time I saw an open room, I went in and hung out for a bit, just to kill time. But around 11 p.m., I finally decided to head back. As I walked down the long corridor, I saw that same dark, eerie part of the hostel at the end. I had only ever seen it in darkness. There was never any light there. At some point, even the hostel staff had stopped bothering to install new bulbs. Standing at the entrance of the corridor, I felt my heart stop for a second. I quickly turned my gaze away and looked at my room's door. The lock was still in place. Good, I thought. Those two are still out somewhere. Even the watchman won't let them in now. I can finally get a good night's sleep. I hurriedly unlocked the door and stepped inside, only to be hit in the face by a cloud of cigarette smoke. Coughing, I squinted through the haze and saw Pankaj and Gorov sitting inside, drinking beer. I sighed and grabbed my head in frustration. The moment they saw me, they burst into laughter. Pankaj took a swig from his bottle and said, "You idiot, why was your phone off? Did you really think you could escape us? We knew you wouldn't come in if the door was open, so we told the watchman to lock it from outside. You thought you were safe. Come on, sit down. Tonight's party is on Gorov." Gorov raised his bottle in the air and smirked. "Yep, enjoy it while you can, because this is the last party I'm paying for. From now on, our dear friend Pankaj will be covering all my expenses for a whole year." I just stared at them, knowing there was no escape. What else could I do? I sat down with them, picked up a bottle, and took a sip. The beer was warm and bitter, making my face twist in disgust. Pankaj chuckled, grabbed my shoulder, and said, "We've been waiting for you for an hour, man. Be honest, were you hiding because you were scared?" I shook my head, trying to convince them. "Look, you guys are way too drunk. You should sleep. We can do this challenge another time." But they were too far gone, repeating the same thing over and over. "Nope, it's happening tonight. Right on time. No delays." For the next hour and a half, I had to listen to them rambling about ghosts and spirits. I barely managed to finish half my bottle. The beer was so warm and bitter that I had no desire to drink it. Meanwhile, those two kept downing one bottle after another, getting more and more wasted. Eventually, they collapsed, rolling around on the floor and passing out. Their bottles still had some beer left in them. I sighed, walked over, and emptied all the remaining beer, including my own, before finally getting into bed. I wanted to get a good night's sleep, and the moment I hit the bed, I felt like I was floating. The buzz was slowly creeping into my mind, and I started drifting off into sleep. I had no idea what time it was, but suddenly, the loud ringing of a phone jolted me awake. It was Gorov's phone, vibrating and blaring in the middle of the night. I picked it up and saw that he had set an alarm for 2:50 a.m. I turned it off, but as soon as I did, Gorov sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Hey, wake up. It's time for the challenge," he said. still half asleep. He shook Pankaj awake. Pankaj groggily mumbled, "Dude, it's already 3 a.m. The challenge is technically over. Let's just go back to sleep." But Gaurav wasn't backing down. "No way. We still have to do it. And I'm going to win." I wasn't that drunk anymore, but Pankaj definitely was. At that moment, neither of us cared about the challenge. It was only Gaurav who was still dead set on going through with it. He grabbed a phone lying nearby and said, "You guys don't have to do anything. Just leave a phone outside with the recording on. I'll take mine with me, and I'll be back in exactly half an hour." Cool. I just stared at him, too tired to argue. This was back when phones had barely 2-megapixel cameras, and memory space was almost non-existent. Like an idiot, Gaurav snatched Pankaj's phone, dragged both of us outside, and the moment I saw that dark hallway, whatever little buzz I had left instantly disappeared. Pankaj sighed, rubbing his temples. "All right, how about this? Instead of 30 minutes, we make it 15. I'm seriously sleepy." Gaurav scoffed. "Do whatever you want. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't care. But you made a bet, and you're gonna follow through." Seeing Gaurav's stubbornness, Pankaj just threw up his hands in surrender. At exactly 1 minute before 3 a.m., Gaurav turned on the camera on Pankaj's phone and placed it against a pillar on the floor. Then he smirked at us before turning toward the darkness. "If you want, you can come inside, or you can just stand here and watch," he said as he walked away. I stood frozen, my breath caught in my throat. My mind screamed at me to stop him, but I couldn't figure out how. He disappeared into the dark, and just like that, he was gone. I strained my eyes, trying to make out any movement, but the thick blackness ahead of us felt like it was swallowing him whole. The silence around me felt heavier with each passing second. It was creeping into my chest, wrapping itself around me like a slow, suffocating fog. My pulse pounded in my ears as I widened my eyes, staring into the deep shadows ahead. That darkness, it wasn't just in front of me anymore. It was crawling into my mind, sinking into my bones, the way alcohol creeps into your system. I stood there, completely still, my body cold, my hands trembling. Even Pankaj, who was still tipsy, seemed rattled for a moment. Then, from somewhere deep in the darkness, we heard his voice. "All right, I'm going in now." It hit me then. The first part of the challenge was to reach the last room in the corridor. Before going inside, he had a knock on the door. I wanted to yell at him to stop, but before I could, I heard it, the door creaking shut. Panic seized me, and without thinking, I turned and rushed back to my room. That last room was only 8 to 10 doors away from ours, but at that moment, it felt like miles. Time crawled. I could hear every second ticking by on my watch, each tick matching the thudding of my heart. His voice still echoed in my ears. Pankaj followed me into the room, but unlike me, he just plopped onto my bed and stretched out, acting like nothing had happened. I, on the other hand, could barely breathe, and the worst part, the night was far from over. Lying down, Pankaj lit a cigarette and started checking the beer bottles next to him. Without even sitting up, he said, "Dude, why are you so scared? He'll be back." I wasn't in a state to reply. My eyes drifted to the clock on the wall. My phone wasn't even turning on, so I couldn't call Gaurav and tell him to forget the damn challenge and just come back. Screw the bet. The next 3 or 4 minutes felt like 3 or 4 hours. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned to Pankaj. "Where's your phone? Call him right now. Tell him to come back." Exhaling a long puff of smoke, Pankaj replied lazily, "It's right outside, by the pillar. You saw me put it there." I was already on edge. "Then go get it." He scoffed. "If you're so worried, go get yourself." There was no time to argue. My nerves were already wrecked. I rushed outside and bent down to pick up the phone. That's when I heard it. A faint, scraping sound behind me. I froze. A chill ran down my spine like an icy hand brushing against my skin. Still crouched, I slowly turned my head. And then, at the far end of the dark hallway, someone was standing there, motionless, their eyes, glowing red, locked onto mine. A shiver shot through my entire body. My hair stood on end. I couldn't blink, couldn't breathe. My legs felt weak, ready to collapse beneath me. Snatching the phone, I bolted back into the room, my heart hammering against my ribs. "PP Pankaj," I stammered. I saw something. Someone was standing there in the dark, right outside that room." Pankaj, unfazed, grabbed my head and shook it. "You idiot, Gaurav is in there." Obviously, it was him. "Stop freaking out." I yanked my head away from his grip. No, wait, let me show you the phone." My hands trembled as I opened the video. Nothing, just complete darkness. But I knew what I had seen. I shut the video off and immediately dialed Gaurav's number. Ringing, no answer. My pulse quickened. My breath turned shallow. "Pick up the damn phone, Gaurav." The clock's ticking was the only sound in the room, but my heartbeat was louder, faster. Pankaj, meanwhile, couldn't care less. "Dude, seriously, pick up." I muttered under my breath, dialing again. After a few more tries, click, the call connected. "Hello," I gasped. "Gaurav? Gaurav, listen to me. Just come back. Right now. You won. That's it, challenge over. Just come back." Silence. Then, a single, ragged breath on the other end. I went ice cold. "Gaurav," my voice cracked. "Dude, say something. Just come back. Please." Still nothing. I could feel the sweat trickling down my back when, bam, the door swung open. Gaurav burst into the room, panting. And then he laughed. Laughed like a maniac. "You idiots. I did it. I won," he shouted, his arms in the air. "I freaking won the challenge. We're partying every night now, suckers." He danced around the room, teasing Pankaj, who rolled his eyes. Yeah, congratulations," Pankaj said, unimpressed. "Now stop acting like a lunatic." But me? I was still frozen, fear slowly loosening its grip. Seeing Gaurav alive, laughing, actually made me feel better. For a moment, then Gaurav sat down in front of us, grinning. "Check this out," he said. He pulled something from inside his shirt, a small wooden board. My stomach twisted. Bold letters across the top read, "Ouija board." Below it were numbers from 0 to 9 and the entire alphabet. I felt my breath hitch. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. Gaurav dusted it off with his hand. It was just lying there in the room. I stared at it, my mind flashing back to every rumor I'd ever heard about that place. The story of a boy who died in that very room. How a Ouija board had been found on his bed, and the way his body had been discovered. A cold dread seeped into my chest. I wanted to believe this was all just a game, but deep down I knew this was far from over. I was furious. Enough of this nonsense. I don't want any board, any of these stupid games in this room. Just throw it out and go to sleep. But Gaurav just smirked and waved me off. "Who's asking you to play? Relax." Then, turning to Pankaj, he grinned and said, "All right, I'll make you a deal. If you play this with me, I'll drop the bet. You won't have to pay for my expenses for a whole year. What do you say?" Pankaj, cracking his knuckles and stretching his arms behind his head, said smugly, "Since you went through all that trouble bringing it here, what's the big deal? Challenge accepted." I yelled at them a few times to stop this madness. I was the only one who had seen something unnatural, but they were too caught up in the thrill. It was as if they were possessed. They sat across from each other, placed a board between them, and set an empty beer bottle at the center. Gaurav, lowering his voice, said, "We want to meet the spirit that died in this hostel." He repeated it twice, and then he said my name. That's what scared me the most. Nothing happened at first. Gaurav frowned, then wiped the board clean, as if dusting it off would make a difference. As he did, two words faintly appeared, "Ayan" and "out." I assumed "Ayan" meant the spirit had arrived, and "out" meant it had left. Gaurav repeated the question. The bottle slid toward Ayan. I felt my stomach drop. "Cut the crap," I snapped. "I know you two are messing with me." But deep down, I started to doubt myself. Were they really moving it? Or was something else here? Gaurav smirked, locking eyes with me. There was something unsettling about his gaze. I felt anger boiling inside me, but beneath it, fear was tightening its grip around my chest. Still smiling, Gorov placed the bottle back in the center. This time, Pankaj asked, "All right, ghost buddy, what's your name?" The bottle moved again. First letter G, then A, then U. Letter by letter, it spelled Gorov. My breath hitched. My mind raced. Was this another trick? Were they just trying to scare me? I looked up at Gorov, and that's when I saw it. His eyes, that same eerie red glow I had seen earlier in the hallway. His smile stretched unnaturally wide, twisting into something monstrous. Pankaj, still oblivious, laughed. Wait, your name is also Gorov." Gorov chuckled, but his voice, it wasn't his. In a low, guttural tone, he muttered, "Yes, my name is Gorov," and he summoned me. Before we could react, Gorov shot up to his feet. Pankaj barely had time to register what was happening before Gorov kicked him hard. The force sent him flying back. He slammed against the wall, gasping for air, clutching his chest. He couldn't even get up. I stumbled backward, collapsing onto the floor. Gorov, no, whatever had taken over him, let out a terrifying, inhuman sound, a guttural growl that made my skin crawl. I could only watch, paralyzed in fear, as he convulsed, his body twitching like a puppet on broken strings. Then I noticed it, near the bed, Gorov's talisman, the one he always wore. He must have taken it off while drinking. I darted my eyes between Gorov and the talisman. Gorov suddenly let out a bone-chilling scream and sprinted out of the room. I wasted no time. I grabbed the board and hurled it out of the window. The moment it left my hands, it crumbled into ash. What the hell had we just invited? A loud banging on the door made me jump. Boom, boom, boom. Gorov. I knew it was him, but he wasn't knocking. He was pounding. I turned to Pankaj, who was still groaning in pain. I pulled him up, and together we ran to get help. We gathered some of the hostile guys, even called the watchman, but no one believed us. They thought we were drunk, playing a prank. I wished it was just a prank. We convinced them to come with us, to check the dark hallway, the last room at the end. Flashlights in hand, we stepped inside. Gorov lay motionless on the floor. No breath, no heartbeat. His right hand, several fingers were bent at unnatural angles, twisted as if someone had wrenched them apart. We rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. He was gone. The next day, I packed my bags and left the hostel. I couldn't stay there. A few days later, I heard the official medical report. Cause of death, cardiac arrest. That's what they ruled it as. But Pankaj and I knew the truth. We were the only ones who had seen what really happened. To this day, I still don't have answers. How did it go from a silly joke to this? How did a simple game take my friend's life? I still wonder, and I still fear. Some games should never be played. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. We upload new videos every day. Like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next one.